Captain Jack Stone stared through the viewport of his patrol ship, his hands tightly gripping the control panel. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The stars ahead of him were beginning to blur, as if he was looking at them through water. He had been patrolling the outer edges of the solar system when his sensors started going crazy. Base command, this is Captain Stone. I'm seeing some strange readings out here, he said into his comm unit. Energy levels are off the charts. The response came back filled with static. Return, immediately. Emergency meeting. Council. Jack turned his ship around, pushing the engines to their limit. As he raced back toward Earth, his rear cameras captured a sight that made his blood run cold. A shimmering wall of energy was spreading across space like a giant curtain, following his ship's path. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber, High Counselor Reed stood at the central podium. His tall, gray-skinned figure cast a long shadow across the marble-like floor. Representatives from 100 alien species filled the tiered seats around him, their murmurs echoing through the vast space. The vote has been cast, Reed announced, his voice carrying no emotion. Earth will be quarantined for the safety of all species in the galaxy. Their technological growth rate is simply too dangerous to ignore. In the human section of the chamber, Ambassador Wilson jumped to his feet. This is outrageous. Earth has done nothing wrong. We've followed every regulation, signed every treaty. Sit down, Ambassador. Reed cut him off. The decision is final. The barrier is already being raised. Wilson's face turned red with anger. You can't do this. There are billions of lives at stake. Precisely why we must act now, Reed replied coldly. Humanity advances too quickly, adapts too readily. In a mere 2 centuries since discovering spaceflight, you've already matched technologies that took other species millennia to develop. You are a danger to the galaxy's stability. Back on Earth, chaos erupted as the barrier became visible from the surface. It looked like a second sky being built over the first one, its surface rippling with strange colors. Emergency alarms blared in every major city. In the UN emergency session in New York, world leaders gathered in panic. Screens showed the barrier's progress as it enclosed the entire solar system. Military commanders reported that their weapons had no effect on it. Scientists admitted they couldn't even understand what it was made of. Captain Stone finally reached Earth's orbit, his ship's engines glowing red from the strain. He transmitted his sensor data directly to Earth Defense Force headquarters. The barrier is complete, he reported, his voice heavy. We're sealed in. All attempts to communicate beyond the solar system are being blocked. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Wilson made one last attempt to reason with the assembly. At least tell us why. What have we done to deserve this? Reed looked down at him with what almost seemed like pity. It's not what you've done, Ambassador. It's what you might do. Your species learns too fast, adapts too well. You take our technologies and improve them in ways we never imagined. Some members of the Council even believe you might surpass us within a few generations. Wilson's eyes narrowed as understanding dawned. You're afraid of us. Fear is a logical response to a potential threat. Reed responded. The quarantine stands. Earth will remain isolated until the Council decides otherwise. This session is adjourned. As Wilson was escorted out by Council security, he looked back at Reed. You've made a terrible mistake. You don't know humans very well if you think we'll just accept this. Reed dismissed the warning with a wave of his hand. But later that night, alone in his chamber, he remembered Wilson's words. For just a moment, he felt a flicker of doubt. On Earth, as the reality of their situation sank in, governments worldwide declared states of emergency. But in secret laboratories and military bases across the planet, scientists and strategists were already working on ways to break free. They didn't know it yet, but the Council had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The betrayal was complete. Humanity's response was about to begin. Dr. Anna Wright hadn't slept in 3 days. Her eyes were red as she stared at the readings from her Mars research station. Something was very wrong with the data, and she knew she had to figure it out. "Run the test again," she told her computer. Numbers and graphs flashed across her screen, showing the same disturbing pattern. The barrier wasn't just trapping them inside the solar system, it was slowly killing them. She grabbed her tablet and rushed to the station's communication room. "This is Dr. Wright from Mars Station 1. I need an emergency link to Earth Defense Force headquarters. Priority level: critical." Meanwhile, on a space station near Jupiter, Lieutenant Tom Parker was doing something that would get him executed if the Council ever found out. He had managed to hack into their secure network through a hidden backdoor left by a friendly alien engineer who disagreed with Earth's quarantine. Come on," he muttered, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Warning messages flashed on his screen as he dug deeper into the Council's secret files. Then suddenly, everything stopped. He had found something. "Oh no," he whispered as he read the documents. "They're not just containing us. They're executing us." Back on Mars, Dr. Wright was explaining her findings to the Emergency Coalition's leadership through a secure video call. Her voice shook as she spoke. "The barrier doesn't just block physical movement," she explained, pointing to her data. "It's also blocking certain types of cosmic radiation that Earth's biosphere needs to survive. Plants will be the first to die. Then the oceans. Then us." The room fell silent. General Roberts, head of the coalition, leaned forward. "How long do we have?" "At current rates, maybe 2 years before the damage becomes irreversible. 5 years maximum before total ecosystem collapse." On the Jupiter station, Lieutenant Parker was sending his stolen files through a secure channel to Earth. His hands were sweating as he worked. The Council's internal messages were damning. Subject: Earth Containment Strategy. Priority: maximum security. The barrier will serve 2 purposes. Primary: containment of human expansion. Secondary: gradual reduction of human civilization through environmental degradation. Models suggest their extinction within 5 to 7 years. No direct action required. The barrier itself will accomplish our goals. Parker had just finished transmitting when his station's alarms went off. Someone had detected his hack. He quickly began erasing his tracks, but he knew he had only minutes before they traced the signal back to him. In New York, the Emergency Coalition's headquarters was in chaos. Dr. Wright's findings and Parker's stolen documents had arrived at the same time. The truth was worse than anyone had imagined. "They're not just afraid of us," General Roberts told his staff. "They want us gone. All of us. Every human in the solar system." Dr. Wright, still on the video call from Mars, spoke up. "There's something else in my data. The barrier, it's not perfect. There are fluctuations I can't explain. Like it's having trouble staying stable in certain conditions." Lieutenant Parker, who had managed to escape detection for now, joined their call from Jupiter. The Council's files mentioned something similar. Their engineers had trouble maintaining the barrier's quantum stability during testing. General Roberts stood up, his face grim but determined. "So the barrier has a weakness. Doctor, I want you to focus all your research on these fluctuations. Lieutenant, keep digging in their files, but be careful. We need to know everything about how this barrier works." He looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. "What they're doing isn't just imprisonment. It's genocide. But they made one crucial mistake. They gave us time to find a way out. And that's exactly what we're going to do." As the meeting ended, Dr. Wright returned to her lab on Mars, and Lieutenant Parker began carefully covering his tracks on Jupiter. Both of them knew that somewhere in their data lay the key to humanity's survival. They just had to find it before the Council's plan could reach its deadly conclusion. The hidden truth was now exposed. The real fight for survival was about to begin. Commander Helen Black stood in a massive underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. 3 months had passed since they discovered the Council's plan to destroy humanity. Now, the biggest secret project in human history was taking shape around her. "Status report," she called out to the room full of scientists and engineers. The facility buzzed with activity as hundreds of people worked on different parts of Operation Lightbreak. Dr. Wright, who had been moved from Mars to lead the research team, walked up with her tablet. "We've confirmed the quantum fluctuations in the barrier. It's like a fence with holes that appear and disappear randomly." "Can we use these holes?" Commander Black asked. "Not directly. They're too small and too random," Dr. Wright replied. "But we found something better." She pulled up a 3D model of the barrier's energy pattern. "The Council's technology can't handle multiple quantum states at once. It's their biggest weakness." In another part of the facility, Lieutenant Parker worked with a team of engineers. After his close call on Jupiter, he had been brought back to Earth to help design their response. Holograms filled the air around them, showing designs for a new type of spacecraft. "The phase ship prototype is ready for testing," he reported. "We've built it according to Dr. Wright's specifications. If she's right about the quantum states, this ship should be able to pass through the barrier." Commander Black nodded. "How soon can we test it?" "Tomorrow morning. We've cleared a secure testing area in the Nevada desert." Meanwhile, in cities across Earth, the general public remained unaware of the true danger. The governments had decided to keep the extinction threat secret to prevent panic. Instead, they focused on unity and resistance. Factories worldwide had been secretly converted to produce components for phase ships. Every major technology company was involved, though none knew the full picture. Each built different parts that were brought together in hidden facilities like the one in the Rocky Mountains. The next morning, a small group gathered in the Nevada desert. The first phase ship sat on a launch pad, looking strange with its quantum crystal coating that seemed to shift colors as you watched it. "Begin test sequence," Commander Black ordered from the control room. The ship's engines hummed to life. Dr. Wright stood next to her computer, monitoring the quantum field readings. "Quantum field is stable. Beginning phase shift in 3, 2, 1. For a moment, the ship seemed to exist in multiple places at once, like a blurry photograph. Then it shot straight up into the sky. Approaching the barrier, the test pilot reported. Everyone held their breath. The ship hit the barrier and passed right through it. The control room erupted in cheers. Dr. Wright hugged Lieutenant Parker, both of them crying with joy. Commander Black allowed herself a small smile. "Bring the ship back," she ordered, "and begin full production immediately." Later that day, Commander Black met with the Emergency Coalition's leadership. "Operation Lightbreak is a success. We can bypass their barrier." General Roberts looked at the test data. "How long until we have a combat-ready fleet?" 6 months, minimum." Commander Black replied. "We'll need at least 10,000 ships to strike all their key targets simultaneously, and each ship needs its own quantum crystal coating." "They think they have 5 years to watch us die," General Roberts said. "That's their second mistake. Their first was attacking us at all." As the meeting ended, Commander Black walked through the facility. Everywhere, people were working with renewed energy. The phase ship's success had given them real hope. She stopped at a window overlooking the main construction bay. Below, workers were already building more ships. Each one represented humanity's refusal to accept extinction. The Council thought they had trapped humanity in a cage. Instead, they had forced humanity to evolve, to become something new, something that could exist in multiple quantum states, something they couldn't contain. The underground response was ready. Soon, it would be time to show the Council exactly what humanity could do when pushed too far. Captain Jack Stone sat in the cockpit of humanity's first combat-ready phase ship. After witnessing the barrier's creation months ago, he had volunteered to pilot this crucial mission. The ship hummed around him, its quantum crystal coating making the hull shimmer like a soap bubble. "All systems are go," he reported to the control center. "Beginning phase shift sequence." Commander Black's voice came through his comm system. "Remember, Captain, this is a warning shot only. Get in, deliver the message, and get out. No combat unless absolutely necessary." "Understood, Commander." Starting quantum drive now. The phase ship lifted off from the secret launch facility. As it rose through the atmosphere, Stone could see the barrier shimmering high above. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart was racing. No human had left the solar system since the quarantine began. In the Rocky Mountain facility, Dr. Wright and Lieutenant Parker watched the ship's progress on their monitors. "Quantum field is stable," Dr. Wright reported. "He's approaching the barrier now." The phase ship hit the barrier and passed through it like it wasn't even there. Stone let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Barrier passage successful. Setting course for the Council capital. On the Council's capital world, High Counselor Reed was in the middle of a meeting when the alarms began to sound. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. A security officer burst into the chamber. "Sir, we have an unknown ship in orbit. It just appeared out of nowhere. Our sensors didn't detect any approach." "Impossible," Reed said. "The barrier is perfect. No human ship cold." He was cut off as every screen in the chamber suddenly activated. Captain Stone's face appeared on them all. "Greetings, High Counselor," Stone said, his voice calm but firm. "The people of Earth have a message for you." Reed's gray skin turned almost white. How did you breach the barrier?" "The same way we're broadcasting this message across your entire capital city right now, through technology you thought we couldn't possibly develop." Stone's expression hardened. "Here's our message. Remove the barrier, or witness humanity's full response." In the council chamber, other representatives were starting to panic. Their greatest fear was coming true. Humans had found a way out. "This is clearly a bluff," Reed announced, trying to maintain control. "One ship means nothing. They cannot possibly have the resources tow." Stone interrupted him. "Look at your sensors again, Counselor. Look at where I am right now." The security officer checked his readings and gasped. "Sir, the human ship is physically occupying 7 different positions in space simultaneously. That's not possible." "That's the thing about humans," Stone said, a small smile on his face. "We have a habit of doing the impossible when you back us into a corner." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You have 24 hours to begin dismantling the barrier. If you refuse, we will demonstrate exactly what our phase ships can do. And trust me, we have more than one." With that, the phase ship shifted through quantum states again and vanished, leaving the council in chaos. Back on Earth, Stone landed to a hero's welcome. Commander Black met him as he climbed out of the cockpit. "Message delivered," he reported, "though I doubt they'll comply." "We don't expect them to," Commander Black replied. "But now they know we can reach them. Phase 2 of Operation Lightbreak can begin." In the council chamber, Reed was trying to maintain order as representatives demanded answers. How had the humans broken through? What else were they capable of? Should they give in to the demands? "We will not be threatened by primitives," Reed shouted. "The barrier stays." But later, in his private chambers, he reviewed the sensor data from the phase ship again and again. The humans hadn't just escaped their cage. They had mastered technology that the Council had deemed impossible. The warning shot had been fired. Now the Council would learn exactly what humanity could do with 6 months of focused preparation and the motivation of survival. 6 months. That's how long Earth had been building its response since Captain Stone's warning mission. The entire planet had transformed into one massive production facility. Dr. Wright stood in her new laboratory, surrounded by improved quantum crystals that powered the phase ships. "The new coating is ready," she told Commander Black. "It can hold 5 more quantum states than the original design." Through the lab's window, they could see the massive underground hangar. Hundreds of phase ships sat in neat rows, their hulls shifting colors in the bright lights. But these weren't like Captain Stone's simple scout ship. These were warships. "How many are complete?" Commander Black asked. 8,000 so far, Dr. Wright replied. 2,000 more will be ready by the end of the week. The whole world is working for us now. She was right. Every factory on Earth had been converted to produce phase ship components. Car manufacturers now made engine parts. Foam makers produced quantum computers. Even toy companies had their machines running day and night, creating the tiny but crucial sensor arrays. Lieutenant Parker walked in with his tablet. "The Council still thinks we're bluffing," he reported, showing them his latest intelligence intercepts. "They've doubled the barrier's power, but they haven't started any real military preparations." Commander Black smiled. "Good. Let them think that one ship was all we had." In orbit around Earth, the first training squadron of phase ships practiced their maneuvers. The pilots had been chosen from every nation's best pilots, submariners, and drone operators. They learned to think in multiple quantum states, to exist in several places at once. "Remember," the flight instructor told them, "you're not just flying through space anymore. You're flying through possibility itself." Back on the ground, in cities across the planet, the public side of the operation continued. Factories appeared to be making normal products. Ships seemed to launch for Mars and Venus as usual. The Council's spy satellites saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see. But underground, beneath mountains and deserts and oceans, the real work continued. Dr. Wright had made another breakthrough, one that would change everything. "We can disrupt their shield systems now," she explained to the military command. "The quantum field doesn't just let us pass through barriers. It can temporarily collapse any energy field that uses Council technology." The generals looked at their tablets, watching test footage of a small quantum pulse completely shutting down a replica of Council shields. One of them whistled softly. "They thought they could cage us," Commander Black said. "Instead, they forced us to evolve beyond their understanding of physics." In his training simulator, Captain Stone worked with the new systems. His ship now carried quantum disruptors along with its other weapons. But the real power wasn't in the weapons. It was in the ship's ability to exist in multiple states at once. "The Council believes in absolutes," he told his squadron. "Things must be either one way or another. We've learned to be both, to exist in many states at once. That's why we'll win." As the last phase ships were completed, Commander Black called a final meeting of Earth's leadership. The room was tense with anticipation. "The Council's barrier was meant to be our extinction," she said. "Instead, it became our chrysalis. We've transformed ourselves, created technology they thought impossible, built weapons they can't defend against." She looked around the room. "In 1 week, we launch Operation Lightbreak's final phase. The Council thinks they have us trapped and dying. They don't realize they created their own worst nightmare, of humanity that had nothing to lose and everything to gain." As the meeting ended, Dr. Wright looked at the latest sensor readings from the barrier. The Council had made it 3 times stronger, thinking that would keep humans contained. They didn't understand that the stronger they made it, the more quantum fluctuations it produced, the more weaknesses it developed. The preparation was complete. Humanity was ready to show the galaxy exactly what happened when you try to cage them. The Council's capital world shone like a jewel in space. High Counselor Reed stood at his office window, looking at the night sky. 6 months had passed since the human ship's appearance, and nothing had happened. He was starting to relax. That's when the alarms began to sound. "Sir," a security officer burst into the room. "Multiple ships appearing everywhere. Our sensors, they're overloading." Reed rushed to his screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. Not one ship, not a dozen. Thousands of phase ships were appearing simultaneously across Council space. On the bridge of the lead phase ship, Commander Black gave the order. "Begin Operation Lightbreak. Remember your targets. Military installations only. No civilian casualties." 10,000 phase ships moved as one. Each existed in multiple quantum states, making them impossible to track or target. Council defense systems couldn't lock onto ships that existed in 5 places at once. Captain Stone led the first strike team. His squadron of 50 ships appeared inside the Council's main military base. Their quantum disruptors activated, and suddenly every defense shield in the facility collapsed. Main defense grid is down, Stone reported, moving to secondary targets. Across Council space, the pattern repeated. Phase ships appeared inside supposedly secure facilities. Quantum disruptors shut down shields and weapons. Precision strikes disabled military capabilities with surgical accuracy. In his command center, Reed watched in horror as reports flooded in. How is this possible? Their ships are everywhere at once. Lieutenant Parker, monitoring communications from Earth, smiled as he intercepted the Council's panicked messages. They still don't understand, he told Dr. Wright. They can't imagine how we did this. Dr. Wright nodded, watching the quantum field readings. They trapped us in a box, thinking we'd slowly die. Instead, we learned to exist outside their understanding of physics. On the Council capital world, Commander Black's ship led the final assault. 100 phase ships surrounded the Council chamber itself, appearing through its supposedly impenetrable shields as if they weren't even there. This is Commander Helen Black of Earth. Her voice boomed through every speaker in the chamber. Your military capabilities have been neutralized. Your defenses are down. We could destroy you all right now. The Council representatives huddled in fear. Reed stood at his podium, trembling but defiant. Then why don't you? Show us your true barbaric nature. Commander Black's ship shifted into visible space directly in front of the chamber's main window. Because that's the difference between us, Counselor. You tried to kill us slowly, hoping we'd just fade away. We could do the same to you, but we won't. Inside the chamber, screens activated to show the extent of Earth's strike. Every major military installation across Council space had been disabled. Their mighty defense fleet was powerless, their weapons offline. Sir, a military officer reported to Reed, we're getting reports from every sector. The humans, they didn't kill anyone. They disabled our weapons, our shields, our ships, but they deliberately avoided casualties. Reed's face showed confusion. But why? They have us at their mercy. Why show restraint? Commander Black's voice answered him. Because we're better than that. Better than you. We're not here for revenge. We're here for justice. The phase ships began transmitting data to every screen in Council space. Evidence of the planned genocide. Proof of the Council's true intentions with the barrier. The slow death they had planned for humanity. People of the Council, Black announced, you need to know what your leaders planned. How they ordered the death of billions through slow suffocation, just because they feared our potential. In the Council chamber, representatives from other species began to turn on Reed and his inner circle. They had never agreed to genocide. The strike was complete. Earth had won without taking a single life. Now came the hard part. Creating a new order that would ensure this never happened again. 1 week after Earth's strike, the Council chamber looked very different. The old tiered seats had been replaced with a circular arrangement where all representatives sat at the same level. High Counselor Reed and his inner circle sat in a detention area, awaiting trial for crimes against sentient beings. Dr. Anna Wright, now Earth's first Council representative, stood at the center of the chamber. She wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's new symbol, a quantum particle existing in multiple states at once. The barrier will be completely dismantled by the end of the day, she announced. But more importantly, we need to address why it was built in the first place. Commander Black, standing beside her, nodded. Fear. The Council feared what humanity might become. Instead of reaching out to us as partners, they tried to destroy us. The chamber was quiet. Many representatives still couldn't believe how completely Earth had outmaneuvered them. Captain Stone, watching from his phase ship in orbit, smiled as he remembered their shocked faces during the strike. We could have destroyed you all, Dr. Wright continued. Our phase ships could have ended your civilization in hours. But that's not who we are. That's not what humanity stands for. Lieutenant Parker, now head of the new Joint Security Force, brought up holographic displays showing the phase ships helping to dismantle the barrier. The quantum crystals that had been weapons of war were now being used to heal the damage done to Earth's biosphere. Today, we propose a new kind of council, Dr. Wright said. One built on cooperation, not fear. On sharing knowledge, not hoarding it. On helping species grow, not holding them back. In the detention area, Reed watched with bitter anger. "You'll doom us all," he muttered. "Some species are too dangerous to be trusted with advanced technology." Commander Black walked over to him. "That's where you're wrong. Every species has the potential for both great good and great harm. The trick isn't to cage them. It's to help them grow responsibly." Around the chamber, other representatives were nodding. Many had never agreed with Reed's extreme measures. They had seen how humanity chose mercy over vengeance, precision over destruction. "We offer you our quantum technology," Dr. Wright announced. "All of it, not as a threat, but as a gift. A foundation for new discoveries we can make together." The chamber erupted in excited discussion. Species that had been bound by the Council's technological restrictions for centuries saw new possibilities opening up. On Earth, people celebrated as the last sections of the barrier disappeared. The phase ships now patrolled Council space not as conquerors, but as peacekeepers. Captain Stone led the first joint training mission, teaching pilots from other species how to handle quantum technology. The Council thought quantum states were impossible to control. He explained to his alien students. They forgot that the universe isn't about absolutes. It's about possibilities. In her new office, Dr. Wright looked at a message from Commander Black. "Phase ships detecting no hostile activity. The transition is proceeding peacefully." She smiled and turned to the window, watching ships from a dozen species moving through quantum space as easily as normal space. In just 6 months, humanity had changed the galaxy forever. Lieutenant Parker entered with the day's reports. "The trial dates are set for Reed and his conspirators, and 17 species have already applied to join the technology sharing program." "And Earth?" Dr. Wright asked. "Recovery is ahead of schedule. The ecosystem damage is reversing now that the barrier is gone. We're already planning the first quantum-powered colonies beyond our solar system." As the sun set on the Council capital world, Dr. Wright thought about how differently things could have turned out. The Council had tried to cage humanity, to let them die slowly in the dark. Instead, humanity had broken free and brought light to the entire galaxy. The new order was beginning, not through force or fear, but through humanity's greatest strengths: adaptation, innovation, and most importantly, mercy. Earth's revenge hadn't been destruction. It had been enlightenment.